Explosion in Monaco. What is actually known and what remains just a theory? At the end of June, according to various reports, on either June 29th or 30th, an explosive device went off at the entrance to a residential building in Monaco. The target was Vadim Yermolev, a businessman originally from Ukraine who, according to newspapers and sources, made his fortune with the Alev Group, which is involved in commercial real estate, manufacturing, and the agricultural sector. About 10 years before these events, he gave up his Ukrainian citizenship, and in 2023 he came under Ukrainian sanctions because of his ties to Russia. As a result of the explosion, Yermolev was injured, and the women and child who were with him were also hurt. At the time I checked, it still had not been reported who they were. We do not know whether it was his wife and child. Moreover, the condition of one of the victims, it's not clear who, was described as life-threatening. Maybe at the moment when the lawyer appeared. This video is public now, but when I was gathering the material, it was not available yet. Rumors are persistently circulating in Ukraine that Yermolev was in charge of a company importing and distributing hard drugs into Ukraine. He was the head of a number of call centers through which the distribution was carried out. And Yermolev set up the logistics, delivery, security, as well as connections with government circles to protect his operation. He had constant friction with a competing organization that was involved in drug production in Ukraine and operated under the name Kimprom. They also had call centers that distributed plus exported drugs to other countries through Poland or through other channels. That's what, as they say, is circulating. The connection with the leader, with the country's leadership, with the security forces, and especially with the national police, was handled by Ali Ryazantsev. For example, Maxim Sergeyevich Tsukaridze, as I understand it, is a second-rank police general of Ukraine and the head of the main investigative department. He is a doctor of law, an honored lawyer of Ukraine, and a professor. He allegedly received from the drug mafia very expensive watches, a gold Rolex, a gold Patek Philippe, a gold Frank Muller. The total value of just these 3 watches is $1 million. I'm not saying this is true. I'm telling you that this is what's persistently circulating among Israeli and Ukrainian security agencies. As for the Israeli side, I don't think they're involved in this. According to the same story, Oleksandr Madlitsky gave Yevgeny Ryud $200,000. Yevgeny is an officer in Ukraine's main intelligence directorate, GUR, under the Ministry of Defense. Yevgeny was involved in special operations behind enemy lines at the GUR. At one time, he worked closely with Budanov. Note that it's Yevgeny. Yevgeny brought Vitaly Zhikovich, a former SBU officer who also works in the National Police. There was also someone named Ivanov, no first name yet. So Ivanov seems to be the one who had a garage that looked like a torture chamber. And it seems that this Ivanov was also an SBU officer. I got the information from a bunch of publications, a bunch of newspapers and others from Monaco, England, and wherever else. And there, even though there's a lot of different material and a lot of time is devoted to this case, everything is completely unclear. In other words, there really isn't any clear information. The trio found this Anastasia Berezovskaya, whom, as they now say, they taught how to make and set explosive devices, and they transferred $7,000 before the assassination attempt. Maybe 7,000 euros, I could be wrong, but it was 7,000. And after the act, they transferred another $5,000 or euros. And somehow this trio later moved her after the assassination attempt to Ukraine, even though there was an Interpol request for her. What's unclear here is how Anastasia, who was just recently trained, could make such a professional explosive device. But we'll talk about that too. We're talking about it because there's something fishy here too. Next, it seems that Berezovskaya was moved to Ukraine through Poland, where Ukrainian intelligence freely crosses the border and moves anyone across it. All of this, of course, is not proven facts, but just stories that, like legends, are circulating in Ukraine. She returned to Ukraine on July 1, and on the 3rd she was killed. In Ivanov's apartment, they found a torture room, as I already mentioned, where it seems she was tortured. Again, a couple of publications told us that she was tortured, but nothing was said about how they know this. Well, why could they have tortured her? The only reason I can see is to get information about who else she might have told about what she was planning to do or had already done and hadn't shared with someone, and also about who actually hired her. On the 3rd, she was taken to the forest and shot in the back of the head. And then they shot her 3 more times, so in total, 4 times in the back of the head. Probably to make sure she was really dead. I apologize for the nervous laughter. I don't know why they had to shoot 4 times. Well, I mean, they're supposed to be professionals, right? This is exactly where we should stop. Because according to official reports, the investigators already have almost the entire chain in hand. The alleged maker and installer of the bomb, well, even if posthumously, 2 people. That is, they know her, they know who she is. Yes, 2 people detained for her murder. The financial traces of transfers between them, the burial site, the weapons used. You can find her correspondence, you can find her on social networks, anything you want. By the standards of most criminal cases, this is an extraordinary amount. And yet, when asked who actually ordered the terrorist attack, the Monaco investigation and the Ukrainian side respond, I don't know. Logically, there's a fork here, and both branches, to put it mildly, are inconvenient. Either the person who ordered it really is unknown, and the 2 detainees are giving contradictory statements, blaming each other and lying all the time. In that case, it's just a matter of time. Or there is some understanding, but for some reason, maybe political or diplomatic, it hasn't been made public yet. Neither of these things by themselves proves any specific conspiracy theory. But you also can't just dismiss the question of how you don't know who ordered it when you already have the perpetrators. It remains an open question. And again, this is one of the most striking, so to speak, one of the most striking aspects of this case. There's another oddity that you probably noticed. Some people involved and some connections are mentioned in public statements, but they aren't elaborated on. Someone is referred to as a 49-year-old man, and the name is not disclosed until the official announcement. This can be explained purely by procedural reasons, investigative secrecy, witness protection, or maybe not. There is no reason to claim that there is necessarily intent behind the silence, but it is possible and necessary to record the very silence as a fact. After that, the realm of speculation begins. What matters is not which version sounds better, but who stands behind each one and what they are based on. For example, the Western press, they are very restrained. But when they write about Trump, they are not restrained. CNN, PBS, NBC report everything. So Yermolov is a businessman who gave up Ukrainian citizenship and is under sanctions. The device was professional, suggesting a group was involved. The female perpetrator was found murdered. One detainee's house had a basement resembling a torture chamber. There were money transfers between the suspects, no conclusions about who ordered it. Oh, and not a word about drugs. The official Ukrainian line, that's amusing too. This was a completely self-initiated operation. It has absolutely no connection to Ukrainian security agencies. Hooray! According to the testimony of the detained Ukraine's military intelligence officer, he acted on his own, completely on his own. There were no authorizations from the leadership. He conceived it, executed it, and hired people all on his own. This means Berezovskaya's murder wasn't a state operation, but the act of specific individuals. Among other things, they were involved in money transfers. Well, to her, from someone. Where did the $200,000 come from? It's a weak theory. The weak point of the theory is obvious. If you believe this, it turns out that an active intelligence officer acted alone. He organized the elimination of a person on the international wanted list. But that doesn't answer the question about who ordered the explosion. He eliminated her on his own initiative just like that, and no one asked him to do it. No one sent him $200,000. Where did that $200,000 come from? How did all of this happen? Well, everything is falling apart at the seams. There's also a Russian and pro-Russian angle. This was done by Zelensky's intelligence services. So the theory is blunt and unequivocal. They know everything for sure. Viktor Medvedchuk, he's a pro-Russian and Ukrainian opposition politician, directly claims that the services subordinate to Zelensky are behind the attack. And Yermolayev was allegedly removed because he was about to expose corruption schemes. Yermolayev was about to expose corruption schemes. Berezovskaya, according to the same Medvedchuk, was eliminated by accomplices. Right after her return. Well, everyone kinda knows that already. Criminalist Mikhail Ignatov, in a comment to Arguments and Facts, says the theory that Ukrainian intelligence services were involved is the most likely. By the classic playbook, eliminate the perpetrator so he doesn't talk. A separate statement mentioned in several broadcasts is from former advisor to the Prosecutor General of Ukraine, Andrei Terezhenko, who said that Zelensky personally authorized it. This is a claim from a single source, not publicly confirmed by anything. It should be treated as such. My own people. I can tell them whatever I want. Andrei A. connects the narrative, drawing a conclusion about who ordered it because the perpetrator was eliminated. A strong guess, of course, but not proof, gentlemen. Not proof. Now there is also, of course, the criminal business version which we talked about, which is basically where we started, right? A settling of scores. At the same time, as I already told you, there is an interpretation according to which the root of the story is not in geopolitics, but in competition within a certain shadowy business environment. Political scientist Alexei Dudchak, from the Institute of CIS Countries, put forward a version about settling scores in the criminal business around call centers, fraudulent schemes, and theft. Also, the criminologist Ignatov, whom I have already mentioned, allows for the version that the person who ordered it could be one of Yermolayev's business partners. The logic of this version is clear. If shadowy organizations are fighting, they don't care where it happens. The bomb could go off in Monaco or anywhere else. They have no political restraints whatsoever. But there's another interesting theory. It's a theory about an internal conflict between the GRU and the SBU. You really had to come up with something like that. Ukrainian voices opposed to Zelensky, like Ihor Masichuk, Anatoly Shari, are promoting an interpretation that this is a clash of interests within the security bloc. Either the intelligence service was moonlighting or it was deliberately betrayed by competitors. As a detail supporting the execution version rather than a spontaneous murder, they point to the nature of the wound. This is also a version put forward by interested parties, gentlemen. It should be evaluated with the same adjustment for bias as the previous ones. So, now there's another layer that's easy to miss, but without it, the picture gets distorted. Each version has not only authority, but also the author's own interest. And these interests, by a curious coincidence, are reflected in the victim himself. Yermolayev is a man who renounced Ukrainian citizenship and is under sanctions precisely because of his ties to Russia. And at the same time, the loudest voices insisting that the terrorist attack was the work of the Ukrainian state belong to the Russian and pro-Russian side. There is nothing incriminating about this in itself. The interested party could very well be right, but this explains the tone. For the Russian media landscape, the story is a ready-made narrative about terrorism by the Kyiv regime. Before that, they were saying that it was, this so-called Nazi regime, and now it's terrorism by the Kyiv regime. And it is presented with maximum certainty where the Western press leaves things open-ended. That's exactly why the same chain of facts is interpreted by TASS, Vzglyad, and AIF as proof, while CNN and PBS see it as a set of circumstances that are not yet connected. That's where your answer comes from. Why do some journalists avoid uncomfortable topics like the shadow business and Yermolayev? There could be several reasons. Not all of them are sinister. There's a simple procedural reason. Until charges are officially brought, a reputable publication won't call specific people criminals. Otherwise, that's a lawsuit for defamation, not journalism. There's also a reputational aspect. Picking up the version that's being pushed the loudest by the opposing side in the information war means risking becoming their mouthpiece. And there's also a simple lack of verifiable information. Where there are no documents or confirmed sources, a responsible author remains silent instead of speculating. Most authors in the Russian Federation and Ukraine cannot be called responsible. The silence surrounding this topic is a fact that should be noted. But by itself, it only proves one thing, that no one who is willing to sign their name to it has any evidence yet. There are several points where the theories stumble over the facts, and they should be stated directly. First, the story involving the Ryud brothers. In the early reports, the name Yevgeny Ryud appeared. But Radio Liberty specifically corrected this point. According to two independent sources, the suspicion was directed at Vladislav, and not his brother. Second, it's not about the performer's amateurism versus the device's professionalism. If the bomb was complex, remote-controlled, then the person was trained in a hurry. A person trained in a hurry, the installer doesn't match the level of the attack itself. And this rather works against the version of random criminal amateurism in favor of the idea that something much more serious and better prepared was behind the technical part. But someone more prepared doesn't necessarily mean a state. That is, it doesn't have to be a state. There is a whole unexplored section of evidence between these two theses. Thirdly, the basement is a torture chamber. Money transfers. Both facts are confirmed in Western coverage. Both point to the idea that Berezovskaya was not simply eliminated, but possibly tortured beforehand, as if they were trying to extract something from her. But what exactly they wanted to get from her, and whether they got it, is already a reconstruction of the motive, not a fact. And that's what we don't know. Did someone from the Ukrainian Special Services order the terrorist attack? Or was it business competitors, or maybe shadowy organizations? Was there an order from above? Or is this the initiative of completely separate individuals who just happen to work somewhere in a shadowy structure, in a security agency, right? What does the hasty elimination of the perpetrator mean? Each of these high-profile interpretations belongs to an interested party, Russian, pro-Russian, coordinated, conspiratorial. They infer who ordered it from indirect evidence, including the fact that the witness was eliminated. That may turn out to be true, but indirect doesn't mean proven. The question that remains open and doesn't require any secret sources to be pressing is this. How is it that the perpetrators are in custody? The money, the bodies, the weapons are in custody, but the person who ordered it is unknown to anyone. What does that mean? Who is the one who ordered it that people are looking right at but don't see or don't want to see? I won't see you, that's it. Do whatever you want, I won't see you. We don't have an answer yet. That's likely the most interesting part of this story. So tell me, what do you think? Who ordered it?